Welcome to Comadres y Comics. Comadres y Comics is a podcast hosted by 3 Latina women.
We highlight the Latinx presence in the comic book industry as creators, characters, and fans.
Join us as we talk chisme, comics, fandom, and beer.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Las Platicas. Kristen, who is in studio today for Las Platicas?
Yes, so don't forget, Las Platicas is a show hosted by Comadres y Comics, where we meet with creators and friends to talk about upcoming projects, events, and all-around awesome news in the comic community. Today, we are discussing a comic anthology that asks a deceptively simple question. What happens when we actually step outside and reconnect with the natural world? How to Touch Grass is a thoughtful and wide-ranging collection that brings together creators exploring our relationship to nature, technology, and each other. Through personal stories, essays, and creative explorations, the anthology dives into everything from plant identification and community building to philosophy, mental health, and the hidden networks, both human and mycelial, that connect us. In a time when so much of our lives happen online, this book invites us to slow down, look around, and remember that the ground beneath our feet has stories to tell too. We are honored to be joined by members of the creative team behind the anthology to talk about how this project came together, what touching grass really means to them, and how culture, community, and personal experience shaped the pieces they contributed. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here this evening. And Sarah, I asked you to do it, but I'm just going to do it since we're doing our introductions. Thank you, all of our listeners out there, and we're going to ask you for this Las Platicas episode to bear with us because Jen can only hear some of us, but she's still going to participate because if you remember many months ago, it was her in La Libreria. When she brought this project up, she has a lot of passion around it and she really wanted to participate. So we're going to do the best that we can. So to start off, before we dive into the anthology, could each of you introduce yourselves and tell our listeners a little about your role in How to Touch Grass and what you contributed to the book and what drew you to this project? And so I'm going to start with Jomet. If you can just start, who are you and what was your contribution to the anthology?
All right. Thank you so much, Kristen. First, I want the whole world to hear my compliment that is incredible copywriting about our project. Everyone hire Kristen to be your official company copywriter. It'll be worth every penny. So that said, my name is Jomet Gill. I am a Afro-Cuban cartoonist based in the Pacific Northwest, and I am the publisher of Power and Magic Press books. I came up with the idea for How to Touch Grass, our latest comics anthology. So I'm the organizer of it. I've acquired the different comics that are in it. I'm the editor along with some incredible assistants because this is the biggest project we've ever done. And the reason that I wanted to get this project off the ground is because every project that Power and Magic Press puts out is sort of driven by kind of like the vibes in the air. We have one about greater representation for queer women of color, our Queer Witch series. We have one about how there are so many non-binary, incredible non-binary talented people in comics, yet, you know, of all the group anthologies I was seeing, no one was making one that was all non-binary people. So we put out the first all non-binary anthology, Heartwood. And now rolling into 2024, 2025, when the project was first conceived, I just could not stop thinking about how everyone was so extremely online. Everyone was doom scrolling. No one can leave their house because they can't afford to go anywhere. Like, just every conversation just seemed to lead back one way or another from all these different threads to people needing to touch grass. People needing to go outside, literally and figuratively. So I thought, yeah, that's all I can think about. So I'm going to make it my job too, to think about this professionally for a little while. And that's how the book came to be.
Oh, that's awesome. Ryan, what about you?
I am a Mexican American cartoonist living in South Korea. I've been traveling all over the world for many decades, making comics about the places I travel. People might know some of my books like Band Book Club, No Rules Tonight, Good Old Fashioned Korean Spirit, Student Ambassador series, Learn to Read Korean 15 Minutes. And when I saw the call for entries to How to Touch Grass, I just knew there's a story that I have been telling people for since it's been what about 25 years now that I've been telling the story over and over again about how like uh I graduated from animation school the year that the entire animation industry was laid off. Everything was in shambles. I'm like so stressed out about my life, and then I started traveling the world, and it completely changed my brain chemistry. It changed every like who I am and what I care about. And so I'm always talking about the story of something that happened to me, and I thought it was a great place to put it.
Awesome. And Michael, it's great to have you back. You participated in another anthology that we also talked about. And so we'd like to know, introduce yourself and what was your contribution to How to Touch Grass?
Okay, so I'm Michael. I'm back, and I am a cartoonist. My contribution to this anthology is basically, I grew up online. Like I grew up next to the computer. That was basically my twin sister, my twin brother, and touching grass basically happened once I immigrated my home country. I am an Afro-Venezuelan cartoonist, so when I moved to Argentina, it's when I basically started to actually going out and meeting people out of survival because I didn't know anyone here. And that's basically like my contribution is my journey of like, growing up in this shell that was my safety bubble, and then how that was popped once I stepped out, and the things that I experienced.
That's really amazing. Thank you guys for being here today and sharing this project with us. The phrase touch grass usually shows up online as a joke or an insult. Jomed, what inspired you to turn the phrase into a theme of a comic anthology?
So I touched on that a little bit in my intro, but to be more specific, I I'm definitely the target demographic for the anthology as well. I am very I guess prone to staying indoors most of the time. I have autism and ADHD, and that can just sort of make basic daily interactions extremely overwhelming. So the just sort of like easiest way to get through a day while dealing with life is to also like keep the constant of at least I'm in my home where I know where everything is, I know who's going to show up and who's not going to show up, I know what kind of conversations I'm going to have. So like the known was sort of like the bubble that was sort of well, it continues to sort of shield me from experiencing like meltdowns or like other phenomenon like I'm forgetting the term now, but it's an emotional regulation problem that comes with ADHD, and that I just sort of considered part of my personality for a very long time. A lot of people are introverted, but as things get worse and worse, in the world, and you start to feel that stronger, more powerful urge to actually like get involved, go outside, help people, make community, especially in times when things are getting so extremely dangerous for Latinx people, more so than ever. You start to think about like, well, if this happened to me, who would I call? Or like if X, Y, and Z like turned up, like who would be calling to find out where I am, just anything like that, or even not necessarily related to what the Latinx community is going through, but just in general, like during a government shutdown, we all had to wonder like, oh, are people on food stamps gonna be able to eat anymore? Like, and what are people's connections looking like? Like, do they know their neighbors? How often do they actually like do I guess, for lack of a better word, do the work of going out of your comfort zone? And to me, touching grass, the sort of meme phrase, it felt like such a perfect way to encapsulate leaving your comfort zone in general, because so often it's lobbed at people who are like, maybe too into a certain fandom, or like have gone too far down an online rabbit hole, so they're like a little delusional about what's going on. And the sort of like cry to like please touch grass, like it what at first started as a quip started to just sound more and more to me like a plea, like a note, like we're begging each other, please touch grass. Like it just started to feel more and more fervent of like, there's so much at stake if you don't figure out how to leave your comfort zone, talk to the people you're afraid to talk to normally, make the connection you weren't bothering to make before, and even just like realizing you were wrong about something by allowing yourself to like actually have an open mind to what other people are trying to tell you or trying to explain to you. It's the whole notion of exiting a bubble, because I feel like our bubbles are like the most dangerous place any of us can be at the moment.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That was just amazing and beautiful. Let me just give a little bit of the points to Jen. Jen, she was talking about how she like embraced touching grass, and because she's kind of in her own bubble, living life, and you can get stuck there and not really reaching out to community or like making connections or just even leaving your bubble. The term touching grass became kind of like a necessity, and not much like it started off as a quip, but it just became really necessary. And that's kind of what inspired Touching Grass as the anthology that we all kind of read today.
So, many people feel disconnected right now from nature, from each other, from their communities. Was that sense of disconnection something that motivated each of your stories?
I'll let someone else go first.
Yeah, Mijael, why don't you start?
Yeah, that was like the main focus of mine, because like I grew up basically like disconnected from like the world around me, and I was overprotected, and I felt like I grew up very slowly because of that. And so in my comic, like I explored like basically like leaving that and getting to become a full grown adult because of that. And how much like of the world I got to learn about, because I started to connect myself with it. And yeah, that.
I'll say for me, like we're talking about the internet, but for me, internet is an important part of the conversation about this, but it's not the thing that's keeping us disconnected. Because for me, as an American living in South Korea, oftentimes the internet is the only way I can connect to my family and to my friends and to my readers.
Right.
But I also recognize if I fall too deep into that, I'm disconnecting myself from everything around me. And like I was disconnected as a kid, but I was like well into middle school before I even got my first 100 free hours of AOL. Like what was keeping me disconnected as a kid was I was obsessed with becoming a professional cartoonist, and everything in my life was about like I need to read comics, I need to figure out how to get a job, and I finally got hired to do a weekly comic for the local newspaper at 16, and then that comic that I did was about an orange cat who's too lazy to chase mice, because I had no life experience except reading Garfield and wanting to make the next Garfield. And then it was after I started traveling that I'm like, oh wait, there's a world outside of me, and there's experiences, and there's art, and there's people, and there's places, and now I have things to talk about. So I think having that connection with other people, and with like just walking up a mountain, walking along a river, having a conversation with a stranger is really that to me is touching grass. It doesn't just mean logging off the internet. And there's times where I feel like I'm touching grass because like I FaceTimed with my mom when I hadn't for a while. Like there's many different ways to do it. It's just, to me, it's about, hey, there's a world outside what's going on in your brain right now.
Yeah, well said.
Wonderful.
Okay. Did you have anything to add, Jomit?
Yeah, sure. My story for the anthology is called "Your Best Friend Is Out There." which is sort of a double entendre that people will get when they read it. It's sort of it's kind of it does the figurative sense of touching grass and the metaphorical. It's basically about my experience last year of finally deciding to become a dog owner, because
Oh.
I've only ever had cats. And I decided to buy a dog because after house sitting for a few folks for money, I realized that everything about my health suddenly improved while I was living in the house the same house as a dog. Um, Especially when I was the one responsible for the dog. The
Yeah.
dog was affecting when I woke up. The dog
Yep.
was affecting when I ate because feeding it reminded me to eat. And its sort of schedule of needing to literally go outside in the grass at certain intervals forced me outside into the grass at certain intervals. It was the most I'd ever come in and out of a building in a very long time. And I immediately, even though it was just a couple of weeks, I immediately felt the benefit. So I thought, yeah, maybe for health reasons I need a dog. So I got one. And the comic sort of explores my sort of the emotional journey of raising a puppy, but not so much in the like puppy blues, oh they're so hard to take care of kind of way, but in the like all these thoughts and realizations that I started having about myself and about human beings and non-human beings. Because even though I've owned pets before, I've had cats and such. A dog is really the only non-human entity that takes the effort, the same effort as like a newborn human baby
Mm-hmm.
to actually take care of, and that actually requires your entire daily life to change forever, because this, well, as long as this dog is alive, you now live according to this other being's needs.
Mm-hmm.
And it had me thinking about speciesism. It had me thinking about the connection between like Palestine and the dog and dogs as a species, because colonizers so often use dogs as a metaphor and animals as a metaphor when they want to dehumanize something. And
Mm-hmm.
kind of thinking about that sort of disconnect that is so fundamental to our psyches, where we see animals as other, and it's our shorthand for when we want to other each other. And yet this other, this quintessential other, the dog, the animal, um is so like us, needs so much of the same things we need, and it's sort of humbling, thinking about, I guess, how we gauge, how we value each other, and what it is we fear and don't fear about each other. um Spoiler, it kind of hinges on the fact that my dog bit me and sent me to the hospital. uh
Oh.
and that sort of unlocked some wisdom for me, like some inner like realization about how the reason it's so hard for me to go outside and touch grass without a dog is because I'm afraid of people biting me. I'm afraid of the human interaction that causes pain. I'm afraid of not being enough. I'm afraid of people being rude. I'm afraid of people disagreeing. You know, everything just feels too much. It's too stressful. What if we were just by ourselves? What if we were just in our bubble? And being bitten by man's best friend, this cuddly little animal who's supposedly so inferior to us, so little, so dumb, like not worth being offended by a slight from a dog. I'm like, no, that hurt me too. And it made me realize how easily hurt I actually am, and how even though like people will hurt us when we go touch grass, we will meet people we don't like actually. We will get into new fights we wouldn't have had if we didn't go outside, but that it's worth it, and that it's part of the human experience, because I wouldn't have been bitten by a dog if I didn't have this dog that was improving my life and my health and my access to the outside in so many ways. So yeah, that's all. That's it. That's all I'm talking about. It's very simple.
Your analogy of your realization that you made the connection that you didn't want to be bit metaphorically by humans is like mind blowing to me right now.
It's mind blowing to me too.
So as I was reading the stories, and thank you so much for sharing the early copy of it, I was myself thinking of my relationship to technology and therefore maybe lack of relationship with community. I always joke that I haven't read a book without pictures in 12 years because that's how long I've owned a comic book store. But if I were being honest, a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm about to give you too much information, but I used to carry a book into the bathroom every day, and now I carry my phone, and I have not read. And I loved reading as a kid. It was part of me not touching grass. I was an only child for the first 12 years of my life, and that was my way of exploring the world. And so I'm wondering for each of you, how was working on this book, how has it made you think about your own relationship with technology and how that has affected your relationship with your communities? Ryan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, I mean, just to, without spoiling my story too much, basically the general idea of my story is that, as I mentioned, graduated, spent 4 years taking out so many loans for a career that no longer existed suddenly, and I'm feeling so sorry for myself. I'm so stressed about the future, thinking about everything that could possibly go wrong. And then through various adventures, I ended up homeless in Japan, sleeping on a park bench in a typhoon with the flu, completely penniless. And as trees
Oh
are
my
falling down,
God.
there's like hurricane level winds, and I'm lying there thinking this is the worst moment of my life. And I realize, wait a minute, that's actually right. This is the worst moment of my life, and I'm fine. And I'm going to tell this story for the rest of my life. And that moment really changed my brain chemistry, like immediately. After that, I've never been stressed about anything. This was like in 2002. I've never been stressed about anything since. And in fact, like when things go right, I get really disappointed because I'm like, well, now I don't got a story to tell. And so, like, that's really made it much easier to have community and to connect to people because I started after that doing this thing called the Not My Jam challenge, where if I find myself turning down any opportunity for just because it's not my jam, like I'm not yes man Jim Carrey. Like if I don't have time, if I don't have money, if I find it immoral, like there's many reasons I can turn it down. But if it's just that's not my thing, I have to do it. And that led to like someone invited me to do an open mic. I'm like, oh, and I'm a writer. I don't perform on stage. Well, now I have to do it. So I did it. And it didn't go great, but I really enjoyed it. And then at that, someone's like, hey, you want to do Shakespeare? And I'm like, I don't really, I guess I got to do it now. And from Shakespeare, I went to doing radio. I went to directing. I went to acting. And now I'm like acting in K-dramas. Like I keep doing all these things
Wow.
that
Wow.
like, I thought were like, that's not my thing. I would never do that. And because I forced myself to, they become parts of my identity. And so for me, that's what kind of identity is. And it also involves doing a lot of anthologies, which are very much my thing. I'm a cartoonist, but like, I just feel like I want to be parts of these small communities. I want to be parts of big communities. I want to try things that I've never done before. And it all leads back to that moment of realizing, why am I worried about things going wrong? Why don't I just trust that I can handle it?
So
Man, that's super inspiring.
as I was reading that story, I was like, oh my, I thought to myself, or I asked myself, did all these things really happen? And for the outcome to be, for it to fundamentally change the way that you thought about things and think about things and approach life now is actually very amazing. And so I thank you for your story. It was really, really touching. So Jomet, I'm going to go to you next so that Michael can go last and Jen can hear it. And maybe if she has anything she wants to respond, she can. So go ahead.
Can you repeat the question for me?
Yeah, so I was just wondering, working on this book, did it change did it change the way you thought about your own relationship with technology and therefore your community?
That's a good question. It did change the way I think about a lot of things, but I'm actually not sure how much it changed the way I think about technology. If only because I'm the one that sort of put the prompt forward. And part of that was, one of the things that was like of the many stressors in my life, all the little things pointing to like, we need to talk about grass, is the fact that the internet was already becoming intolerable. It was already becoming intolerable to me just because of number one, the constant bad news, just
Mm-hmm.
constantly bad news. And it's important to stay informed, but it's actually extremely unhealthy and not at all necessary to be informed every 60 seconds, like to
Right.
receive an every 60-second update on like, okay, and now this happened, and now this happened, and now this happened, because next thing you know, your entire life
Mm.
is just
Yeah.
watching horror happen. And that doesn't help anyone. You're not saving any lives by knowing like, well, I know that the situation changed from 30 seconds ago. It's like, yeah, no one cares, go do something. The thing that needs to be done rarely changes from second to second. Just the details do. So yeah, so I think I was already coming in hot with like starting to spend way less time on the internet than I used to in the past. I was also definitely raised by my computer. And it was also sort of a situation where I was very overprotected by my parents. And the internet was like this magical place that
Mm-hmm.
they did not understand at all. They didn't understand what was going on there. So I was like, great, I can talk to strangers and make friends, because they don't even know what that means to talk to a person on the computer. They don't know what that is. um, and yeah, I actually got into comics that way. I learned everything I know about comics that way. This is a book for adults, so I will go ahead and say, yes, do talk to strangers on the internet if you're an adult. That's a great idea. You should all do it.
That is how both Sarah and I met our husbands. So.
Oh yeah, amazing. See, there you go.
Yeah, I came back from the Yahoo Messenger world. That's how I met my husband.
Amazing. I've met two long-term successful partnerships through OkCupid. So I'm like, yeah, thank
Oh,
you, internet.
yeah. And then, Mijael, finally, I'll let you address the question of whether or not working on this book changed how you thought about your own relationship with technology.
I think working in this comic was part of like some process that I was going through already. Looking into myself and everything that had happened because of the immigration. Because at the moment that it happened, I immigrated like months before the pandemic, and a lot of things that happened, I kind of just like shut them out so I could like keep moving forward. And as I was writing and drawing and just looking at all these scenarios over and over again through cartoon form, but they were there just staring back at me. It was it was emotional for me because like I know I'm here both because of technology and also community, and I think sometimes I will like not understand how those two things were important to me, and like like, I don't know, the words escape me. It's just that I tell the story through a fictional character that I made, and it's like I won't be here if it wasn't for the people that I met online, and I won't be here if it wasn't for the people that took me in Argentina that I met in real life. And I don't know, there's a part in the comic that it's like towards the end, so I don't probably should talk about it. But I don't know, it's basically like me giving myself comfort through a character that I made years ago before I even immigrated. And I don't know, I think like that character now symbolizes like all the people that basically like helped me Spider-Man 2 style to get out of Venezuela.
It's beautiful.
I really thought it was really resonant that in your story, I kind of picture your self-insert character, the narrator, as almost like a D&D character that you might have played like during a campaign. And having that juxtapose. Oh, well, there you go. I nailed it. Just having that be the face kind of presenting your story, your first foray into like IRL, like
Yeah.
for real. It was almost like a passing of the torch, like from your imagined self to like your out in the grass self.
Yeah, I think that's still a thing I'm trying to also like connect with, because that is the character that I played as in
Mm-hmm.
some random D&D campaign that I found in Argentina while I was homeless. So it's like he was
Mm-hmm.
myself there, like happy and free and
Yeah.
like powerful. And now it's like I'm in the position to draw him, like that passing the
Mm-hmm.
torch, and I am in a better position now. And it's like, oh, thank you for what you did.
That's wonderful. Now I know one of the things Comadres y Comics talks about is a lot of the importance of community, especially in comics. I know you touched on a lot of that already, but how does this anthology really contribute to that conversation? We'll start with Ryan.
For me, anthologies are always about building community. Like my first big foray was when I was in the Flight Comics anthologies that were big many years ago, and just I remember what a big moment that was for me to like have my name listed alongside like Scott McCloud and Raina Telgemeier and like and uh, that kind of community still building today. Like last night, I was screaming seeing the first Flight comics alumnus to win an Oscar and Chris Applehands for K-pop Demon Hunters, and like I still
Wow.
feel that connection even if they don't remember I exist. But like, so now even though I'm always on deadlines for graphic novels, like I always take time to do anthologies, and the main reason I do it is that I often have like a lot of like friends that are like starting out in comics that are like I really want them to do more work. So my thing is always I'll write a script and like sign on to write something for them to draw because I want to like bully my friend into getting more attention and getting more work. And then my thing is I'm like, you keep all the money, I don't care, I just want to write a script and I want to see what you do with it. This ironically, How to Touch Grass ended up being the opposite because I actually did originally talk to a different artist and signed him on to illustrate it. And then as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, okay, well, let me find photos of me at that time. Let me go on like Google Maps and see if I can like get pictures of all the places I went. I'm like, wait a minute, why am I going to force someone to draw one of the most significant moments of my life where I'm going to be like obsessed about every detail of what it looks like? Like, I'm like, and I tell them like, let's do a different comic together. I'll draw this because I don't want to put that on you. But I mean, it's still kind of a community of being a part of a group of artists trying to make something, and now being able
Hmm.
to talk with everyone here today. And that's what anthologies are: is they're building up a community and giving new artists a chance to mingle with artists that have been doing it for a while, and uh, readers can come in for artists that they know, and then discover artists that they don't, and build people's careers. So that's what's always exciting for me.
Awesome. And Jomette?
Yeah, that was a great answer. I'll add to that the community aspect of this anthology is sort of it's the behind the scenes community of you sort of have to build a community in order to make an anthology happen. The goal of this anthology is almost to be like baby's first community, I guess. Like the way you can sort of read something and feel like, oh, they've gone through what I've gone through, so I feel less alone. um every story is very different and treats the concept of touching grass very differently, but that sort of diversity of takes is all very intentional because there's so many reasons that everyone around us is failing to touch grass or not able to like grant themselves the opportunity to do it. So I wanted it to be a book where people can open it, and at some point through that experience they're going to hear like a real story because it's a nonfiction uh collection that is like, wow, that's exactly what I was feeling, and now I'm hearing from a specific real person about their real life and how they navigated the exact thing that I'm going through. Or if, they're still trying to figure it out, they're being extremely real on the page about what their emotional journey is as they try to navigate that and figure it out. And even that can like get someone started on the path to feeling connected. Like it's sort of that because if you're starting from zero of like, if you really really need this book, you're like, oh, I you might be scared, you might be being held back by either your burnout or your social anxiety, or your schedule or your work like it could be so many different things. So having someone having this sort of compendium of people to go through and like kind of, almost like a phone book, looking up the exact person you need to hear from about this issue is something that I want people to get out of it as sort of that jolt of recognition of like, okay, well, if I'm not the only one feeling this exact way and dealing with this exact thing, then maybe I can try what they tried. Or
Mhm.
then maybe, it isn't an excuse and I do have to still try. Not in the sense of like disabilities or barriers like that being excuses, but like sometimes what's holding us back is like us not believing we're capable of
Mhm.
things that we are capable of. And I never want that to be what's stopping anyone from living their best life and making friends and all that stuff.
Sounds like. Mihail?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. One of the things Comadres y Comics talks about a lot is the importance of community in comics. How to Touch Grass contribute to that conversation?
Well, I think like this is the first anthology that I've been like more so involved with, right? Like I had that light bulb moment of like, okay, I can contact this podcast and connect with Joe Ahmed and all these things, and it's like I can do something. But also like for the stories that I tell, like I mean, every time I join an anthology, I tell something about myself in these nonfiction stories. So I think it's like with every story I write, it's like I come to terms with myself better because it's like I just love avoiding what's going on in my brain. But I love drawing and I love telling stories. So then it's like, oh, I have this idea of something that happened to me, and then I have to write it. And it's like, oh wow, this actually happened. So I like the aspect of like that I'm visibilizing these issues or these stories not only for other people but also for myself to be like, yes, this happened to you. Like you immigrated alone, and these things happen. So like deal with it. But especially as a Venezuelan, I feel very like happy that I get to tell these stories for other Venezuelans out there that because I mean so many of us have immigrated, and it's like I would like to think that maybe my stories might help like to connect with other Venezuelans that are. I mean, immigration is horrible, so like a lot of my stories are about that, and people Venezuelans, I think, I mean, I grew up just feeling ignored by the world because of what's going on, what is going on. And so I try to put that at the forefront of my stories because it's like, no one listened to us since like the 90s. So, like, it's like I'm here, I know us, it's like we're here. So, basically that.
That's beautiful.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Jen, I think it's it's your turn to ask the question. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Um, so one of the things that's really fun about anthologies is seeing the different visual styles in one book. Can you talk a little bit about the artistic approaches in how to touch grass and how the art helps bring those stories about nature and connection to life?
Yeah, for sure. Uh, everyone everyone is coming in with some pretty different styles. I feel like that's something that sets How to Touch Grass completely apart from our other anthologies, but because our other anthologies were all fiction, it was sort of I guess it's sort of like suited the process a little more or was a little more doable to sort of say, oh, I don't know, I just feel like this aesthetic looks great for fantasy. And kind of letting that guide it a little bit. Not that people didn't have diverse artistic takes there too, but all their artistic styles sort of like they were kind of like dialects of the same language. You could kind of flow in and out of one and into the other. Um, How to Touch Grass has way more instances of flowing in and out of different styles. And I feel like that's something that really like it kind of props up the autobiographical nature of it because there's so much personality that comes through in a person's art style.
Mhm.
Like you've got folks who are writing like sort of a silent story where the script writer they're still writing a script even though there's no dialogue, but the script is more like, in this panel the character does this, in this panel the character does that, in this panel the character realizes XYZ, right? And they're showing this emotion. And in those cases, like, it's just so strong when you have an artist whose style is like extremely poppy and like graphic and appealing. It sort of like doesn't make you miss words, because there's so much like there's so many design elements that are really like simple and strong, carrying you through. And when I say simple, I mean kind of like an animation style where the lines are so precise and the character designs are like extremely like uniform from one panel to another panel, so that you can kind of you don't have to say anything for people to keep track of what's going on. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have work like what we have from Bat Cities and Junoro. Their story is about Junoro, the writer's experience with a tragedy that left them feeling really hollow inside. And as sort of a metaphor, they're literally a ghost at the beginning, and it's sort of their path towards regaining solidity as they have to tend to the garden around their house. And that one, the style there is very like when you can tell that a really, really good artist has drawn a children's drawing, where
Yeah.
you're like, okay, yeah, it's got like the crayon texture, it's got the little bit of the wobbly lines, and you're like, yeah, but no kid draws that good though. Like, it's that consistent from thing to thing. So you're able to sort of have this like children's like nursery rhyme kind of feeling to go along with the extreme metaphor of, like, once upon a time I was a ghost because a terrible thing happened, and then I looked outside and I saw the weeds growing in my garden. And so having like all these different styles happening at the same time, they end up being part of the storytelling and part of the emotional nuance of what all these real people have like are really trying to communicate about what they've been through.
Ryan?
Yeah, well, I'll say the big difference for me with How to Touch Grass is that with anthologies, you're always getting different styles. But with this, there was a rule to bring everyone's art together, where it was that we could only use colors that were in nature, grass colors.
Yes.
And so as I was drawing, like it really made me think about my art in a different way. Because oftentimes, especially when I'm drawing a comic about my life, I've done so many of them that I'm like, well, let's open the last comic I did. Here's my skin color I use. Here's the hair color I use. Drag and drop those colors. And now I'm really having to think about how do I interpret this through these colors. And it's like adding a lot of greens. And I'm like, if I'm too bright, it looks like Slimer slimed everybody. If I go too like soft greens, it looks very sickly. And I'm like, that's great for the scene where I'm barfing in a fountain because I have the flu. But what about these other scenes? Not right. So I'm really having to think about every color that I choose. And then, oh yeah, in the fall, the grass will turn brown. So let's, like in the scene where there's a storm, let's use these brown colors. And then I did it. And then after I'm done, like months after I'm done, I think Joe Met sent an email. It's like, y'all know there's red and orange grass, right? And I'm like, stop! I'm going back. I'm like adding more colors.
Yeah, that was a journey. Speaking of community, I feel like that's a journey we all went on together. Where I was like, all right, everyone, the comics have to be grass colored. If you can find that color in a species of grass, go for it. And as I started to get a lot of comics that were just like green, more yellow green, a bluer green, and I was like, hold on a second, are we doing the same Google searches about grass? And I found the perfect cheat code to send everyone, which was an ear of rainbow corn.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
a lot of people forget corn is grass. Corn plant it's a grass species, and the corn kernels are the seeds of the grass plant. And with rainbow corn, you get blues and you get purples and you get maroons. And I was like, you're welcome, everyone. Here you go.
That's awesome. Miael?
Well, the on the point of the colors, I had pitched this as like the D&D kind of survival guide of my life story, and I was already thinking, okay, I'm gonna use this character, that I made, and I mean, I guess subconsciously, it's like this character that was representing my journey for the outside world, because like he was always like green skinned and with like those big green curls with orange and yellow in it, like he was a plant basically. And so when the limitation of the colors came through, I was like, okay, this works for me because like the character is green. That was fun, and also like thinking about like the relation of this character, and it's like why, I mean, he is a tiefling, like a D&D tiefling, like a demon with horns. It's like, why did I make him green? Like it's like I don't know. It made me think about like I go to parks every day now, so I think I just really wanted to look at trees, and that's why I made a character that was basically a walking tree. um, so I had fun, just like using my character that fit to the limitations of like the colors, and that was fun.
That's great to know. I had no idea. I actually remember wondering to myself, like, huh, this seems like an OC. This seems like a really important character to Mihail. I wonder what color they actually are. No, because I'm like, I just had to make them grass colored. I wonder what the original colors are.
I have a painting like hanging up there that a friend, like an acrylic painting. He's like, it's all green. Like I think my friend used all his greens on that painting. Like it's always been green.
That's incredible.
I have all this merchandise. Yeah. It's time to shine.
So, similarly to diverse art styles, anthologies usually bring together creators of different cultural backgrounds. So, for each of you, did your cultural background influence the story you chose to tell? And if so, in what way? And Ryan, how about we start with you?
I am in a weird place talking about cultural specificity because, like I said, I've traveled all over the world. For a decade, I was living in a new country every year, building an entire community. Now I live in South Korea. I'm married in South Korean. So I have so many different cultures that I'm a part of. Not that I am.
Right.
I don't claim those cultures, but so I end up like a lot of the graphic novels that I do, a very large number of them have been set in Korea because I'm working with my wife to tell her true stories and everything. And I'm always like, can I make a comic about being Mexican? And I have coming in the future. But the great thing about anthologies is that it gives you a chance to tell stories that wouldn't necessarily get sold as a standalone graphic novel. Like in this one, it weirdly, even though it's about a Mexican American character, it's about more about Japanese culture and the things that I experienced there. But like looking at a previous anthology we did together, Mañana, when I'm like, no one is going to let me make a full graphic novel about fungal networks in deep Mexican jungles. But you can do it if you're making an anthology. I love being able to talk about the types of culture that I don't necessarily get to put in all my work.
That's a great plug, by the way. Good moment to say Mañana Latinx comics from the 25th century is something everyone who listens to this podcast would probably be interested in.
Yes. Did we?
We actually reviewed it.
I was going to say, didn't we review it?
Not to my knowledge. I need to see this review.
Yeah, I love the page endings. I think is it either silver or gold? I can't remember. Yep, that's it. Oh, it's the
it's like rainbow, yeah.
Yes, holographic, yes. When I got it in the mail, I was like, oh, this is beautiful. Like I didn't realize it was just so gorgeous.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we try to put a lot of oomph into what the physical object looks like as well, because you can read comics on the computer now, so if it's going to take up space in your house, I want it to look nice while it's doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mihail, did you want to add something to?
For my cultural background, it's also kind of like weird because I mean I grew up in Venezuela. I never left. I mean until I did, but I was raised by the internet, so I had more contact with all my American friends than actual Venezuelan friends. And I mean, it happens to this day that I'm talking to like now my Argentinian friends who don't know English, and I'm trying to talk to them, and my brain is like, I know what to say, but I have to take a second to like translate it, and it's like, why am I translating to my native tongue? um, because that like I spend a lot of time online because other friendships. I mean, I still have a lot of American friends, and my job is remote online, so I spend most of the day talking in English. And I think like I guess what I will consider like what my culture is at this point is just a mesh of all my life experiences, like not only just Venezuela, but also like all the things that I learned through the internet, for better or for worse. And so I think D&D and using an original character for that, I think that is basically what my culture is like, fiction and media and the impact that it has on me, and that's why it's like that, like my character passing the torch to me, like Joe says. I love that.
One
That's
one of the
awesome.
takeaways that I had from your story, Michael, with regards to culture, is sort of the specificity of being Afro Venezuelan, because that makes a difference in like any immigrant experience. Because like the lighter skinned you are, or if you're a white presenting Latinx person, you're always going to have an easier time touching grass, going outside, dealing with people in general. So that felt really specific to me, and I really appreciated that. For your best friend is out there. Um, I don't really talk about my Afro-Cuban heritage, but the sort of points that I'm getting to are sort of rooted in, I feel like, my perspective as a person of color about non-human beings, because I feel like being an oppressed person is so similar to sort of being relegated to being non-human in so many cases. And I feel like that's sort of, it's almost not a gift, but it's like it's sort of like a secret little advantage I feel like I have in like, or that any person of color has in like empathy for the experiences of many different beings, as opposed to sort of like colonial white perspectives of like, especially um like fundamentalist Christian perspectives that are based in European values of conquest of animals as property, of land as property, of even certain types of people as property if they remind us too much of animals. Um, so yeah, so I feel like there's sort of an inherent this is not a white people take in the story.
Yeah, no, very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jen, we totally miss your input. So if you have something to say, please do. I know you read the story, and I
I
know
did,
you
yeah.
presented it on En la Librería in a very past episode. I miss you. I miss you. Uh,
Yeah.
so
I mean, I I was gonna like be like some of my feelings a little bit later, but like I like, and I can't hear Ryan and Jomet, but I really loved the entire, like, what it is that we had. I don't know if it was like all of it, or if it was all of it, or if there's more stories to come, and that it's like the format is still being worked on. But immediately what was there, I loved it so much. I loved how I know anthologies usually, like, there's the theme of, like touching grass and stuff like that, but I also loved how everything seemed to arc into like memory and like nature and escapism via the virtual world or through the natural world, and it just like everything flowed so seamlessly. And Mija, I loved your story as well. I love that because it's so funny to me about D&D is that it is an adventure, like it's an adventure that usually takes place outside but in an imaginary setting while you are inside. So that, and
Yeah.
I think that in itself does count still as well, because sometimes either there's the disconnect from nature, or there is the like was gonna say like it's not safe to like go in the woods, in the forest, and explore, because like either there's not like there is danger in it and the inherent danger of going out into like the wild and stuff like that, but also there's like not really like some in some countries like a ranger service or something like that. Who do you call if you get lost in the woods? And so I think that taking D&D and like also flipping it like your tiefling being the playing the person, I thought that was really really good. And I loved how there was recipes and stuff like that. But overall, what I as I was reading it, all I kept thinking about is how most of my best memories all take place outside. And I think that there is an inherent desire in people not just for a reach for community, but also to touch where it is that they live, to establish where it is that they live and form a connection with it, either from where you were born or where you end up as. And I absolutely adore the book. Like I cannot stress enough how much I truly and truly love it. Yeah. So I truly think this was, I know when I first like saw it, it made me laugh when I saw the title and I was just like how to touch grass. And I'm just like, yeah, some people can't touch grass. But it's also like a reminder of like I also really like nature and like going outside, and like I go bike riding on trails with my friends all the time and it's always so much fun. But it is uh oh, in the beginning when we were talking about like go to how when Kristen summarized this saying I need to touch grass and like kind of like bring myself back, it's kind of how like in a way like to calm myself down sometimes when I get really angry, I'm just like I'm calm, I'm cool, I'm chill, and then through repeating that I eventually do calm down. And so that's kind of how this feels as well. Reading the book as well is uh a reminder and a to like go outside, even reading the anthology outside in the park or with your friends or even like in that setting. I think the that's a really that's a way to like really get people like outside, go outside y'all please. So um I guess onto my question. So the idea of touching grass assumes people have access to safe, welcoming outdoor spaces, which isn't always the case. Some pieces in the anthology acknowledge that reality. Can you talk a little bit about how the book explores questions of access and who gets to feel welcome in those spaces?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and I'm happy you brought up the aspect of the book that's about just nature itself and its inherent value beyond us like needing a break from work or needing to get off the internet. Like the earth, not to get too woo, but I'm like, we are the earth. Like we're creatures. We eat the grass. We plant miles of it. We breathe the air from the tree. Like just like this is all an ecosystem. And when we're talking about being in community with each other, the grass is one of the beings that we need to be in connection with, that we are in connection with, whether we think about it or not. Because when we don't have grass that we can go outside and play on or like gather with our friends, we miss it. We feel its absence. Like we are in relationship with the entire natural world, whether we realize it or not. And grass is sort of like the perfect little ubiquitous entry point. Like everyone's seen grass, everyone knows where some grass is, even if it's, oh, the rich people with lawns have grass. Like you can conceive of grass so easily. It's the plant that's most around us, for most of us in the Western world at least. And and yeah, so I'm glad you brought up that layer to it, because the anthology is so multifaceted and we could just talk about one layer of it forever and never touch upon another. Um, so to touch upon the layer of accessibility, which is another big one in the book, um, we wanted to sort of have those conversations as part of this project, like as an inherent part of it. Because when you tell someone that they need to touch grass more, you bring up the elephant of the room of like, why aren't they? Why aren't they already touching grass? And it's only psychological to a certain point. Sometimes it is literally a material inability to touch grass. I feel like the most powerful, like really unique, kind of niche, but like a really powerful example of this is Asahina's story, To Touch Your Grass. It's the one about the US military presence in Okinawa
Mm.
and the fact that sort of what most Westerners think of as grass, like you think of like lawns when you think of grass, those specific, that specific subspecies of grass, like that type of plant, is not native to the islands of Okinawa at all. So it grows there because the U.S. military plants it as
Mm.
lawns for their bases, and so in their case, to them grass doesn't represent a connection to nature, it doesn't represent um freedom from the indoors, it doesn't represent really anything positive. It represents
Mm.
colonization, it
Mm.
represents imperialism, it represents violence and theft. And everywhere there is grass in Okinawa is a place that Okinawan people are not allowed to access. The grass is representative of everywhere you can't go. Um, and while sort of communicating that to the reader, she informs them about like the movement to have those bases returned, to have that land returned to the people of Okinawa. And in that sense, to touch grass would be like a political victory. It would be like an indigenous victory to reclaim the right to step on that land that is now covered in grass, because no matter what plants it's covered in, it's still theirs
Mhm.
inherently.
Mhm.
Um, and then a sort of more like applicable, I guess, non culturally specific thing are the stories that deal with disability, especially the one by Bryn Forrester. I believe it's called Level Unlocked or Level Locked. We talked about the
Mhm.
title so many
Mhm.
times, and I'm like, it's one of those things.
Yeah.
um, and their experience is of, you know, having autism and physical disability as well, and talking about how it is very important for them to go outside frequently because services they need are outside,
Mhm.
right? And even touching grass for them is a matter of like being able to live a daily manageable life. And they go into not only why it's so difficult to maintain, and the obstacles that came their way during the COVID pandemic, especially, but I really, really appreciated that they shared their technique for when things are going well for them. How it is that despite these hurdles, they're still able to get shit done in their
Mhm.
life. They have to go about it a completely different way than someone who's neurotypical would, but just just the creativity, you know, and the self-knowledge, and the ability to like work with your disability as opposed to against it, the lack of self-judgment about, well, you know, other people could just go when they need to go, but versus me where I have to go to a place over and over to maintain a cycle of comfort and
Mhm.
consistency for my autism to not like make it overwhelming. It I hate the word inspiring. Whenever disability is involved, but like as someone who has a similar problem to her, it did inspire me, right? Because that's a technique I haven't tried before to see if it enables me to feel more agency and more freedom of movement throughout my day to day, despite my neurodiversity. And yeah, I'm really excited for other people to read that, who maybe also didn't know that that's something they could try and they can give it a shot and see if it helps them. Yeah, just stuff like that. There's the culturally specific barriers to grasp. There's disability based barriers to grasp, and then there's also barriers that get brought up that don't really present you with a solution in the end because they're structural.
Mm.
And it's important to have that too, where you acknowledge, like, well, there's no individual choice I can make that makes San Francisco more public transit friendly. Like that there's nothing I can just do tomorrow or because I'm inspired by this book or whatever that changes that like takes the Waymos off the street. um and yeah, so it's sort of not only about saying like touch more grass. You can do it, buddy. It's also like, can we talk about why it's so dang hard? Because
Hmm.
there's so many reasons it's so dang hard and they need to be named.
Yeah.
Did Mihail or Ryan have anything to add to the idea of accessibility and touching grass?
Did you? I've gone before you many times. Do you want to go ahead, Mihail?
Sure. Well, the question also made me think about what Joamet was saying earlier about, like, us with our black ascendancy and the spaces that we are allowed in or not allowed in. That basically, like, is a key part of my experience in Argentina, given the area that I'm in. It's very white, like predominantly white Latinas. So that has also been like a factor that influenced my whole experience in touching grass and my story and my relationship with it, because that, like, I mean, in Venezuela, of course, there was also racism and colorism, but here also as an immigrant, it was the first time that I was like basically I got that reality check of like, oh wait, right, my father is black, so therefore I am black, and now it's like they are treating me like this. So I that's also another part of like the character that tells my story, is that his first design, he had a straight hair, and throughout the years as I grew up, even though I hadn't yet accepted again like my own identity, I started to put these aspects onto him, and I don't know, I was really happy to get to draw him, and with his big hair and his like nose and his lips and everything, all these features that like I am what is the word that people stare at me for sometimes in the street here in Argentina. I have another Venezuelan friend here who has bigger hair than me, and she also gets the stares, and it's just like that visibility important, and it's I don't know, I was just really happy to get to draw all that.
Awesome.
As I mentioned, my story is about having to sleep in the grass during a typhoon. And the ironic thing about that is that it takes place in the middle of a city. And that kind of belies how spoiled I've been living in Asia, especially here living in Korea. I talked before we started recording about how, if you want to know where I live, in the scene in Black Panther where he's jumping around the bridge, that's my neighborhood. And if you look at that, you see all these giant skyscrapers. It looks like wall-to-wall city. But what you don't realize is behind any of those buildings, there's like a mountain. You could just walk out your door. If you turn left, you're going to see city. If you turn right, you can disappear for hours in a mountain and never see signs of man-made structures. Although they do invest a lot of money in trails to make it safe. You walk up the mountains. There's they build like outdoor gyms where there's just equipment. You don't have to pay to go to the gym. You can just go outside and exercise in nature. The other nice thing here is that every single bit of waterfront property, whether it's ocean or rivers, is public space. You cannot build businesses on the water. So like, even though I have an art studio on the other side of the city, and one option is I can take a bus. It takes about an hour and I'm going through the city, or I can just ride my bike along the river. It's actually faster. It takes 45 minutes and I'm riding by the river. Even though there's city all around me, I'm seeing otters swimming in there. I'm seeing jumping fish. I'm seeing ducks and herons. And I really wish that everywhere would invest that much. And it's not an accident. It's very specific. Korea decided to put this into place to make sure everyone has access. When I described to my wife about Central Park in New York, and she's like, I don't get it. That's like the only one? I'm like, yeah, like, but it's long. But it's like, they don't just put a park on every block. And I'm like, no, they don't do that. You got to go to the one where that everywhere here is parks. And having people in those tall buildings allows, like, let's concentrate the people here and we can leave this space open to nature. And Korea's even been like tearing down things. Like there's this amazing new park here where it used to be a train line and that train stopped running. So they ripped out all the tracks and turned it back into nature. And that kind of cuts across the city. And so I hope this anthology inspires people to just kind of care about, like, let's talk to our politicians about, like, hey, why don't we incorporate nature into the design of our cities and really be thoughtful about how to do that. I've been very spoiled. I'm not leaving. I'm sticking around here. So it's
Well, you definitely said you hope this book inspires. And it definitely did for me. The story about the mushrooms and talking about all of the different mushrooms and even ones you can eat and ones that are poison. And then at the end, it's like, how can you do this? Google and research local foraging groups. And I was like, there's foraging groups? I was like so like shocked to find that out. But also there's this woman on socials, I think I see her on TikTok, I don't know where I see her, that I think she sings a little song about like, is it going to kill you or not kill you? And she gives you like all this education about things that she forages in, in her backyard or in the nearby forest. And I'm fascinated by it. And I never thought that I could join a group that would do that. So it has inspired me. And even just to plant wildflowers this spring. Like I've always said I wanted to do that and I just never have. And so I would love for all of our listeners to be able to read this book. So Jomet, can you tell us about the upcoming Kickstarter campaign and how our listeners can find out more information?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so pleased. I'm like, oh my God, yes, the book works. Confirmed. Yeah, so we are funding the printing of the book through pre-orders on Kickstarter. The campaign launches on April 7th. You can follow the pre-launch page on Kickstarter by visiting bit.ly/grasscomics. That's bit.ly/GRASSCOMICS. And if you follow the page in advance, as in right the heck now, yeah, I mean it, start typing right now, and hit click notify me on launch, that will keep you up to date with all the creator interviews we're sharing with our pre-launch followers, with exclusive insight into the exact hour the Kickstarter will launch. And that part is very important because we're doing free shipping for folks in the US and reduced
Ooh.
shipping for international backers who back us within the first hour of launch.
Nice.
So that is extremely valuable in terms of dollars information to have. It also just gives us a really good idea of what to expect on launch day. We want it to be really, really kick off on day one, because it's worth noting it is a relaunch. We have launched this campaign before. It didn't meet its goal. And after working really hard to revamp everything, restructure the rewards, make it a little bit more affordable in light of Donald Trump tanking the entire economy when we decided to make a book. And just creating like just like a top tier experience for everyone involved, where like, yeah, take two is it. And we really want to go off with a bang. We want to print this book. We want our contributors to make boku bucks because we do revenue share with everyone. And of course, we just want the book to exist because hopefully, as we've convinced you while yapping for the past hour, there's a lot of passion that has gone into this, a lot of insight, a lot of emotion, and just a lot of wisdom, and a lot for everyone to glean, especially if they really have been feeling isolated. They've been feeling at their wits' end and not entirely sure how to just feel human again, how to feel like a person, how to feel like you're part of this earth and not just a part of your house that lives to make your boss money, basically.
So, as my own personal interest, I am a comic book retailer. Will there be a retailer tier?
Yes, absolutely, there will be.
Okay.
So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure having you guys on the podcast. I, for one, love gardening, and now I'm trying to get my nephew, who's 3, to go outside and garden with me. And it's so funny because he'll touch a little bit of the dirt, but he won't touch like the wet roots.
Oh.
I don't. So I got him some gloves, and hopefully, like, ease him into touching grass.
Uh-huh.
I have to
Yeah.
just share that Sarah is so much the green thumb of our group that she carries
Oh.
scissors in her purse so that if she sees a plant that she's like, oh my God, she'll do a clipping and take it home and bring it to life in her own yard.
That's
Yeah,
incredible. You know,
and
you can farm mushrooms too.
I was thinking about that because we do love to incorporate mushrooms in our diet. But yeah, I could actually, when I look at a plant that I've stolen, I could tell you what I was doing when that happened. Like, there was this one time I was having some oysters in LA, and we were there for free paella because
Mm.
of their anniversary, and I took a cutting, and it's just I have like 3 planters of that now. Then I went to Ensenada for one of my uncle's like cycling races, and I stole a cutting, and I've so much of that I don't even know what to do. It's like a cactus, and I'm just like, oh my God, stop growing! I just can't keep cutting you anymore. So I mean, there's all these instances of these memories with the cuttings,
And Sarah
That's
and
gifted me an aloe vera. I've had it for years, but I am such the antithesis of what Sarah is when it comes to plants.
oh
That this
no.
is the first year it actually bloomed, and I was so excited. I took a picture. I was like, Sarah, look! I'm even today. I've been saying I'm going to do it, but I have to admit today's the first day I did. I went and put it in the sun because I finally Googled whether or not aloe needs sun. Turns out, yes, it does. So I had it in the sun. So I'm trying to nurture it and do my part. So, and reading this book has again motivated me to continue to do that. So thank you for that.
Beautiful.
I also would like to add.
You're the target audience, Kristen.
I I also wanted to add there is a specific story in there that um, you could be sad and killing your plants, but there's always hope. So don't give up. Just keep trying.
Well, you know, you were getting emotional before we started talking about how it made you think about your mom, and it did the same for me with my grandmother and my great grandmother. They just had a beautiful garden and they were always out in it and they enjoyed it so much. And I don't have that personally, but I would like to try to cultivate that in myself to keep that connection to my family and my ancestors.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that too. I started crying reading one of the stories because it reminded me of my mom because I was so struck by grief, and she had such a beautiful garden that required just work every weekend, and I just could not maintain that. I was not mentally or emotionally or even knew how to even start. Just, I mean, I know how to weed, but like everything else was just kind of foreign to me, and I let it die. And my aunt said, oh, you let your mom's garden die. And she didn't say it in a bad way, and I'm like, I couldn't maintain it. Not by myself, not with like that, all the stuff she already put into it. And then but now I have rebuilt a garden. It's my garden, but it was the inspiration of her love for plants. um and I am using plants that I know I'm not going to kill right away. So like, so the garden that is now is just like an echo of her garden. And because we keep them alive in the memories of what they showed and shared with us. And that is something I really read into one of the stories. So thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm like really happy. Was that our Achita Mitra's story? The one in Calcutta?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
It was just, yeah, it was really great. And also, there was a time where I thought I might lose the house. And that also kind of like hit me in that story. I'm just like, oh, geez. Like, wow, there's like almost a mirrored story in a whole different country with a whole different family, with a whole different culture, and we're almost the same. And it's just beautiful.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's one of the
I'm gonna
other.
take a moment.
I
Guys.
Oh no!
know.
Yes, please,
Take all the time you need, Sarah.
Oh,
So
I really promised myself I wasn't gonna cry, but
we're always crying on our podcast.
Then she lets out a few tears.
Yes. Um, so yes, thank you for sharing that, Sarah. And just before we go, I'd like each of you to share how our listeners can support you individually with your works and how they can follow you, or any upcoming things that you'd like to also share. So, Mijael, we'll start with you.
I'm mostly on Instagram, so you can find me. The handle is a bit complicated, but it's HYZKOA_. Hiskoa. And that's basically right now the only social media where I'm active, because I used to be on Twitter, and then so. And well, my upcoming thing is I'm trying to make an original comic at some point, an original web comic. So looking forward to that. So
Nice. Ryan, how about you?
Everything you need to know about me is at ryanestrada.com. You get my social media there, but there's also thousands of pages of free comics. If you want a
Ooh.
preview of Mañana, you can read my comic from that anthology on my website. Information about all my books. People here might be interested in the Student Ambassador series, which is about a Mexican-American boy who travels the world solving mysteries. Kind of like what I wish Tintin had been when I was a kid, when I'm like, oh, this sounds fun. Oh, this is racist. Is his dog calling someone a racial slur? Yeah, let me make that.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, there's the most recent one, Student Ambassador Silver City, takes place in my grandfather's hometown of Zacatecas. And of course, find me in the anthology, How to Touch Grass.
Awesome.
awesome.
And
for
Joamette?
me,
Yes.
yes, you can find things related to me in any way at joamettegill.com. That's JOAMETTEGIL.com. And for everything Power and Magic Press related, including more information about how to touch grass, visit powerandmagicpress.com. And of course, the direct link to the Kickstarter pre-launch page is bit.ly/grasscomics.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing this moment with us. We can't wait to read the book entirely in its hardcover beautifulness. Thank you so much for this. We have been your hosts. I'm Sarah.
I'm Kristen.
And I'm Jen.
I'm Ryan.
and I'm Mijael.
And I'm Joamette.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.